Hello, everyone. Bom dia, boa tarde. This is going to be a bilingual introduction. Vou falar pouco inglês e português because I have a special guest today, and this is a bilingual day celebrating the solstice. For us here in South America, it's the winter solstice, although tropical winter is almost like nothing, really. And for you guys, it's the beautiful summer solstice. Então, nós vamos celebrar hoje, no sábado, palestras em inglês e português. I would like to introduce my dear friend and colleague that we have met for so many years, online only, although she has been here in Brazil, in Rio, but I say you have to come to São Paulo. But we have time to talk about that. So this is Nadyia Shah, my dear friend. She is an astrologer. She has a background, a family background in a lot of knowledge and tradition. And she was, we share a board of directors in AFAN association. It was like a beautiful experience. And then we start doing like some partnership and working together. And I said, oh, I have to bring you here into my channel. So it's a short interview today, but we promise we are going to do this on Instagram as well, because we have another audience over there. And so I will pass it to Nadyia, and she's going to tell you, we're going to talk about more or less three subjects to make it like a half an hour, but I asked her to tell us how she got into astrology and became a professional, and then everything else, like she is celebrating 10th year of the Sincronicity University, and also she is going to tell about her experience in Rio. So this is the first part of the interview. Ok, Nadyia, with you, pessoal, nós vamos agora entrevistar, ela vai falar sobre a trajetória dela em astrologia.
Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite. That might be all. I did Duolingo in Portuguese quite a bit, but I don't know how much has stuck, but I love still listening to it and sharing with your incredible audience in Brazil. Brazil is very near to my heart. Over the course of about a year and a half, altogether, I spent 8 months, right? So I was there for 3 months, and then I left, and then I came back for 2 months, and then I left, and then I came back for 3 months. So altogether, there was a 8-month period of time in the span of less than a year and a half. And it was all in Rio de Janeiro. And I had a lot of fun. I did Carnival in 2024. And, there's nothing and nowhere like Brazil. Brazil is very special. And how lovely to be here with you, Nando, and to share this moment with your audience.
Thank you. Obrigado.
Obrigada.
Okay, maybe now you can tell us how you got into astrology first time, and then how you became a professional to say, oh, well, this is going to be my business.
I think astrology was always there. As a child, I remember knowing that our family loved astrology, were fans of it, that I had many ancestors who practiced different occult arts, esoteric arts. So it was always there. And I remember I was 14 years old. I went to a job fair for a short-term fair that happens every year in Toronto. And I somebody hired me on the spot, just looked at me and hired me at 14 to read palms over the course of 3 weeks, over the course of that larger feria. No, it was like a big fair that happens once a year. And then after that, I remember like my mom was so excited and relatives started giving me astrology books. Then at 19, I had a computer printout chart, and that was life-changing because I felt like I was reading myself on paper. But then years later, with still astrology there, I went through a really hard time, like a dark night of the soul, we can say. My Saturn return was really, really hard, but other things were happening in my chart. And on the other side of that dark night of the soul, I went into astrology full time. And that was almost 19 years ago. And then 10 years ago, like right now, 10 years ago, I started a school called Synchronicity University. And at first, it was a series of online events, online videos, where I went through like the different North Node signs, the different sun signs, the different moon signs. But less than a year later, I started to teach myself doing live classes. And then the pandemic happened, and that was when the school really expanded. And we started doing a choose your tuition rate, right? So people could come and decide how much they could pay. And that gave people access to really incredible astrology teachers, world-renowned teachers to learn from, and they could decide how much they were going to pay for that. So it made astrology really accessible. I launched a speaker series. So that's like for new and up and coming astrologers who maybe want to be known more, especially other astrologers from other countries like yourself, Nando, who want to be part of being more known to an English language audience. That just became part of the vision, to give people opportunity to expand the school for the students, for speakers. And now here I am, like right now we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary, and it's super, super.
Congratulations. That's so
Thank you.
exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so I should ask you now what your favorite authors' books, or if you have any influence, or altogether, or nothing special.
Oh gosh, there's so many who are special, right? So many who are special. So Stephen Forrest has got to be my favorite, one of the favorite living legends. He was somebody whose books I had read so much, and I had so many of them. And he was doing a live event in Toronto. And I have an online series of interviews I do. I've interviewed like, I don't know how many hundred astrologers by this point, but I've interviewed so many astrologers, at least 200 now. And I remember in the very beginning, it was kind of like my friends and people in the community. And then Stephen Forrest was coming to Toronto, and I asked if I could interview him. And he was my first really big interview.
Oh, I see.
He was so generous, so kind, so insightful in person. So I did a weekend workshop. Yeah. And then he gave me that time and interview. I'll always be grateful to him for that. And as of recently, my most recent book, which is called Of Ravens and Dragonflies, which looks at outer planets transits through the houses in astrology. That's what that book is about, my sixth book. He actually wrote a, like a little testimonial to say, like, basically Nadyia is awesome. And it meant so much to me. He is brilliant. He is generous. He is kind. I'm so grateful for him. So yeah, if I had to choose one person, I would say him. But there have been other people, too, that I have to.
But I have to ask.
Yes, please.
Your books are on Amazon?
Yes, you can buy them on Amazon. You can buy them anywhere in the world. But yes, they're available there on Amazon.
Oh, great. All right. So, like we were talking about, family tradition, and a lot of people really, our elders were like more into the Hellenistic or medieval or classic astrology. And then sometimes we blend both of them. I like to do this contemporary, modern psychology, but also the traditional. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that traditional techniques are really valuable at times. It really depends on the client, right? What are they bringing? What are they wanting? I do, for example, if I'm just doing my YouTube videos, for example, or horoscopes that I do at thefutureismagical.com, that's a membership space. But in those spaces, of course, I'm going to blend, right? I'm going to trust to see where things go, but I'll talk about the energies and the feelings and the experiences and, what it might mean if we look at things in a more predictive, traditional sense of
I see.
interpretation. But with the clients, some clients, they come and they really are like, they want to know about themselves. They want to know everything's going to be okay. They want reassurance. They want validation. But some clients come and they're very specific. They're like, when am I going to get married? When am I going to get a job? Things like that. And so I bring in some of the psychological, but for them, I'm going to use more traditional predictive techniques because you
Yeah,
have to honor
predictive.
the
Yeah,
client. Yeah, you have
sure.
to honor the client. You have to honor that people know what's good for them. And they will come to you when it's good for them, and they will not when it isn't. They will ask for what they need because on some level, it's what it is that ends up being useful to them.
Yes, especially in those kind of times that things are, changing every week, every day. I remember a long time, I'm older than you. I started before computers. So it was, all calculation by hand. And we would do like a reading a year because nothing would happen major in people's life in the 80s. Not me, if they were not into business to make decisions. You could tell about transits, but now you have to talk to a client, every season, summer, winter, change everything. Isn't that true? Isn't that happen? You think?
Yeah, I mean, some clients do. They want, every season, they want more of a breakdown of what to expect when. And for those clients, I like to use lunar return charts, right? Some clients come once a year. I'll use solar return charts. Transits are always, always first. So it's always the natal chart, and transits to the natal chart is always first. Then everything else is a layer upon layer upon layer. And this is something I learned from one of my former professors, Jeffrey Cornelius, the late great Jeffrey Cornelius. You asked
Oh,
about some
Cornelius
people.
from UK that just passed.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
I went to university in the UK and I did his master's program out there years ago. And so he was incredibly important to my formative understanding of how to have reverence and to have reverence for this practice, how important that is. And so he was the one who would say, like, the natal chart is first and transits to the natal chart. And he was into Hori, right? So he really understood the power of Hori as well. But he understood that transits to the natal chart, especially in prediction, is where you should start if you're looking at having that be the foundation, having that chart, having prediction be the foundation.
I see. That's interesting because here in Brazil we had a lot of influence from the French. You
Yeah.
know, some people know like Danny Rudier because he was like French American, a philosopher, musician. But also
He was a
there are some
legend.
other French. They don't speak English, like André Barbeau, that I
Mhm.
love. Was lived up to be 95 years old, I guess. We exchanged letter, very difficult because I couldn't read French and he could not read Portuguese or English, so we had to go with dictionary. But there are also some French, and they do love solar returns.
Mm.
More solar returns. And I know that in America we use transits and also progression, secondary progression. And I cite by Frank Clifford, that is the master, I think, Noel Till and Frank Clifford with solar arc. I love, love, love solar arc. So we international folks that travel and read, we end up being this, quilt, pieces of cultures and techniques. So, but, Nadia, I think at the end, Carl Gustav Jung, he was right. It's not the technique that you use, but the rapport, the 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 I don't know how to say the rapport
I
and
understand.
you
Yeah,
know
Yeah, it's that. Well, Carl Jung, early in his career, he, put astrology in what the theory of astrology came down to what we call the seed moment, right? That's a very famous quote of his, which says basically anything that begins has the spirit of the beginning. And so the
Oh,
natal chart is the seed. Now, later in his career, he revised that and he updated it with the theory of synchronicity, which is this idea that it isn't just about the chart, it's about the moment of the reading, of you coming to the chart, what you are ready to see in the chart, that you see or you hear what it is that you're meant to see or hear as part of your understanding. And so it's fascinating to consider Carl Jung and his work, because he was, so wonderful in studying and exploring it, trying to explore astrology academically. But it all came down to the fact that it isn't that you can look at 100 charts and if 100 people have Mars square their sun, the same thing is going to happen. It doesn't work that way. So there has to be that space for divination. And that was something that, Jeffrey Cornelius was a big fan of asserting, that understanding. Like, one of his seminal books is called The Moment of Astrology. And it really is this book that once you are beyond a beginner level, like, this book, because it is one of these works that just stands out, and it explores astrology as divination. It explores that space and what's happening there. He was a very thoughtful guy, so you can really read it in his pages.
yes, yes. I think, well, we have some books that were translated, but some, became very expensive, especially like too many pages books, and nowadays. But, people, as I said, it's easier for Brazilian maybe to read English because we have to take those tests, examination to go get into university, college.
Mhm.
Uh, but to speak sometimes a little harder. But anyways, here is I don't know if I wrote his name correct or
Jeffrey
more.
Cornelius, I believe that is correct. Yeah.
Okay, so hopefully,
Good.
I'm so
Yeah.
sorry, Jeffrey.
We love
And
Jeffrey. Yeah.
yeah,
Patrick
because
Curry is somebody who was very influential. He was also part of my program. So, yeah, there's amazing teachers. It's wonderful
they are,
that, yeah.
yes.
I mean, the reason I felt so inspired to write books is because they represent the canon, right? They represent documentation of of a time, of a way of thinking. And once you write a book, it's there forever. And it's forever associated with you. It's forever a part of your name. And that was really important to me, to know I was building a legacy. Like, that's really what I've been going for, is building legacy. And I feel like my books are a big part of that. And they were part of inspiring this understanding uh, in me. Jeffrey Cornelius, Maggie Hyde, Patrick Curry, Angela Voss. These were the people behind the program I took so many years ago.
I see. Well, maybe now, like we have been talking about 19 minutes now, I probably should
Don't
ask
worry.
you,
Let's
yeah,
go. Let's talk.
probably.
You're my
I
homie. You're my friend. I'm just relaxed and talking to you. So let's talk.
Yeah, but I'm a mix of Sagittarius and Capricorn friends, so I really do not like to abuse people's friends' time.
I have a Sag moon, two planets in Capricorn, and an Aquarius sun. So no wonder
This
we get along.
this
Yeah.
Aquarius of yours is wonderful. I think I just have Chiron in Aquarius. I have Aries moon, so it's fire.
What degree
Sagittarius
is your moon?
0, Saturn
Ah,
and Neptune under me.
oh my goodness. Yes, that is conjunct. I have Athena and Lilith conjunct there. So in my 10th house. So you are right there with me with your
Yeah,
moon.
oh, you
Yeah,
see,
yeah.
female power in the 10th house.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's so great. So um, maybe I would like to ask you, like, you talked already, but if you think the world how it's going today, like a lot of people are not going to UAC next year because of this new administration behavior in airports, and so a lot of people is right during the pandemics start getting interested in mundane astrology more again, and then because of crazy elections, presidential election all over the world with the leaders. So how are you go about mundane astrology, or you keep your interest more into consulting? How do you blend all kinds of astrology? What is important for you, like right today, yesterday, and tomorrow?
Um, I'm sorry. So, remind me again the question. You're saying, like, how do I keep it straight in terms of the mundane versus the psychological? Did I understand that right? Like, what?
Yes, if
Okay,
mundane came into your life before the pandemics, or
of
it's your
course.
new interest, or you keep loving what you always did. So, what is your passion today? You would say
Okay, my
in
passion.
astrology.
Well, it's interesting because actually, in just 2 weeks from the time that this interview is going live, I'm starting a class. So with my own school, with Synchronicity University, I teach courses there. We have lots of other teachers as well, which is amazing. And also, I teach a class once a year at Kepler College. Now, the class I teach at Kepler is starting in like 3 weeks' time. That's a business class, right? It has very little astrology. It is about the business of what we do and how to use social media, how to understand and create abundance, how to understand streams of abundance. And it is spiritual entrepreneurship, right? It's called Post and Prosper. Maybe I can give you the link and you can link to it below so that people are able to, go on to that and see if that's for them. But I'm very passionate about future generations, right? And having people out there and having a lot of us out there. And I love celebrating people and I love celebrating up and comers and being somebody's first like big breaks, being somebody who was a mentor, who was a guide to people. These things really inspire me. And I know that's not what you asked, but I'll get back to that in a
Yes,
second.
yeah, it is.
Yeah,
It is.
so there's that. But I just finished doing a class on past lives in the astrology chart. That was a lot of fun to do. I really enjoyed that. So I love teaching about different techniques. Um, Part of the reason is because it really makes me realize how much I know. Like it does take me by surprise sometimes. Like when I'm putting together these programs and classes, I realize like, wow, I have studied a lot over the years. I've learned a lot. I've invested in myself in terms of going to workshops, going to classes, like I said, a university program, reading books, but also talking to a lot of incredible astrologers through my school or through Synchronicity Web TV, my show on my YouTube channel. So that's great. But the class I have coming up, interestingly, is about timing beauty. So one of the things I'm always asked about, and I think this makes sense because I have Venus in Capricorn, right? And I say that beauty is work. Okay. For me, anyways, beauty is work. But
Yeah.
it's nice having a Saturn ruled Venus only because it does mean that things get better the older that you get. And so it's good to feel like I'm sort of finding my zone in the mist of everything. But
Yes.
having said that, I'm going to be teaching a class because one of the things people ask me a lot about is when should I get my Botox? When should I get my fillers? When should I have this surgery? When should I do this? When should I whatever? When like they want to know when should I get my hair cut? What if I want to try? When should I try a new wardrobe? Oh, when should I get a tattoo? And that's what this 5-week course is going to be about. It's about understanding like how to be comfortable in your beauty, first of all. So understanding your ascendant and how planets are aspecting your ascendant
Yeah.
helps you to understand how you see your own appearance, what you understand your appearance to be. Understanding your Venus is about celebrating your style, not trying to be another person's style, be your style. Enjoy Venus as she speaks through you. And then we look at understanding some basics of medical astrology so that you are not working on certain parts of the body during certain lunar signs and phases. And we look at aspects. And so, yeah, we're going to be looking at these different things over the course of 5 weeks that are about you, but then it's also about major transits to the chart you want to look at, what's happening in terms of lunar aspects, and everything in between is what we're going to cover. So I'm super excited about that because it's about self-worth, right? Is what it comes down to. It's not about feeling like you have to be any different than you are, but it is about saying you get to decide who you are and how you're going to show that and how you're going to celebrate that and what that's going to mean for you. And I'm all about that. So I'm very passionate about that right now as I'm putting this course together.
Well, I do have Venus in Capricorn as well, so we have this Venus connection, and we can
Yes.
look at you and see, your face, your eyes are totally Aquarius, airy, and Venus. I can tell that, but they say Venus in Aquarius is like the classical, the style, the classical, I don't know how to say that. Oh my goodness, in English is the very good taste, the fine things of life. Do you agree with that? Not cheap
Well,
things or full, like for fate.
you know what? I think my Sag moon throws off that Venus a lot. And so to me, Venus, I love the idea of like fine wine, aging well is part of Venus in Capricorn. Look how stunning you are, right? So we both age quite well as we get older, which is awesome. But I'll tell you, where it comes to like having the best or whatever, my Sag moon and Aquarius sun always win,
Well,
because
let's
what
win.
happens? They always
True,
win because
true.
I'm like fast fashion, ultra fast fashion. I'm constantly giving away clothes. Like when I travel and different people I know, I come to Mexico a lot, and I know that I can easily give clothes to people where I know they're going to be used. Other people are going to be able to use them for a long time to come. And I enjoy shopping. And so I get a lot of these different things, but then I end up donating them. My mom's best friend goes to India twice a year. And so I'll give her things. So she makes sure they go to people who are actually going to use them. But yeah, my style, my expression, it just sometimes it feels like it changes a lot. But then lately, I will say it's been a lot of yoga gear, to be honest with you, as of late. Lots of yoga. Like I like live in yoga pants now. And it's
I
fun.
see yoga
Yeah,
pants.
yeah, yeah, it's fun.
And because we're talking about Venus, I was thinking about what are your experience with synastry?
Mm.
Both loving relationship synastry or past life synastry or even business partnership synastry. What your take on that? I have to tell you.
Yeah. Okay. So first, I'll tell you that Carl Jung actually did an experiment about this, right? And what
Yes,
he
yes.
did was, yeah, a very famous experiment where he got like 100 charts. He had three assistants, and he said, okay, you look for sun conjunct moon in the synastry. You look for Venus conjunct moon, and you look for moon conjunct ascendant. And basically, what he found was that people were kind of seeing um, what it is that they expected to and what it was that was actually correlating to their own chart when they were looking at these charts. And so, on the one hand, those that were looking for specifically Venus conjunct moon, well, they were finding it a lot. And if somebody was supposed to look for Venus conjunct Moon, but actually they themselves were in a relationship with where it was Sun opposite Moon, they were finding that. They were taking note of that. And he put that down to synchronicity, like you see from your own vantage point. So that's one part of it. If we're looking at what one of the most powerful things I can say in synastry has got to be the nodes. So one of my books called The Universe is Wise and Loving, it's all about, it's just the nodes of the moon in astrology, which are just so imperative where it comes to prediction, because so much of the chart tells you what you want, why you want it, how you go about getting it. But it is the nodes that tell you something about the soul contracts you have with yourself and with others.
The notes.
That's how I understand them. And so the ancients sort of conceptualized, thinking about Abu Mashar in particular, in one of his texts, he like shows us how the south node is called the tail of the dragon. The north node is called the head of the dragon. So think about it, like the head, what does the head represent? It is intellect, right? It is choice. It is the higher part of what it is to be a being in this lifetime. The dragon is considered a deeply mystical symbol. Everywhere in the world, cultures that had no contact with each other conceptualized a dragon type figure, which is basically a feathered serpent. We see it again and again. It's a very archetypal, old, mythic figure. Now think about the tail. What does the tail do? The tail is there to protect the anus on an animal. And what does the anus do? It's literally where you get rid of crap, right?
Waste. Yeah.
Waste. Yeah. What it is that you're expelling in this lifetime. And so in the context of, let's just say, if we're only looking at your chart, and you see that there's a transit coming up in your chart, and you're going to have a planet move over the south node. Well, chances are on a soul level, you're going to be knowing that certain things are done, depending on how rare that transit is. So for example, normally you'll have the sun once a year on that south node. So it tends to be a time of you realizing what stays, what goes, what you want, what you don't, but more emphasis on what you don't. And it tends to be a time of some endings, or maybe you see things in yourself that you don't like and you don't want to continue, right?
Yes.
But when a planet is on the north node, it is very common to meet people or welcome opportunities that are exemplified by that planet. So if it's Mars, you might meet someone very sexy. If it's Venus, you might meet someone loving. If it's the sun, someone very charismatic. But ultimately, the job of these people is to align you with what you promised yourself you would do with this lifetime before you incarnated. And so you can see that in synastry. If you meet somebody and they've got a planet on your south node, well, that tends to represent very quick familiarity. Right away, you feel like you know this person, right? I'll give you an example. I spent 3 months in Costa Rica. So I think, I've been to 50 countries, right? So I promised myself I'd go to 50 countries.
How many?
50, 50, because I promised myself
50 países.
50 países, sí. I promised myself I would go to 50 countries before I turned 50. And it was in March of this year that I was in Guatemala, and Guatemala was number 50. And so I did it. I kept that promise to myself. And that was very exciting for me. But I have spent, extended time in so many places in the world. And I spent 3 months in 2022 in Costa Rica. And I just visited Costa Rica quickly, and I got a chance to see that person again. Like I ended up dating somebody there for the entire 3-month time. And, I decided to look at the charts again because I hadn't looked at them in a few years. And I realized, wow, this is so South Node stuff. And I remember when we met, it was like instant. It was like, oh, yes. Like I just heard a voice in my head that said, oh, yes.
Unmistakable.
And yeah, he became a really important person as part of me understanding where I'm going, but also where I'm not going and what is not for me in this lifetime. That's what happens when you have planets, somebody in synastry, their planets on your south node. I'll give you another example. A friend of mine, we're just friends, right? This is Andy of Wise Ass Astrology. He's on my channel all the time. Now, here's the thing. We have like hardly any Mars connections at all, right? Like nothing really. My Mars does nothing in his chart. I think that his Mars is on my moon. I think my Mars only sextiles his Saturn, but my sun is on his south node. His moon is on my south node. And so it really is like, oh, okay, I was his mom in a past life. He was my dad in a past life, is how it feels.
Mother figure.
Yeah. And for me, he has been like a guide. He has been somebody who shined light at times when I didn't realize that I was way off. That's not where I was supposed to go. He, in his own indirect way, helped me see it. He brought light to that. And so that's the south node. But when it's the north node, that person pulls you forward. Like they remind you of something about who you are, what you're here for, and what you're not here for, and about where it is that you're going, whether or not they stay in your life, right? The nodes don't always speak to longevity. What speaks to longevity is Saturn. So you want to look in synastry, harmonious Saturn aspects, because that's what says long-term more than anything.
And Mercury communication, so important in relationship.
It can be. It depends on the type of relationship, right? Because in our modern times, we do think that that's important, and communication, of course, miscommunication can cause all kind of problems, especially if it's someone that is to be a partner, right? That is a whole other type of relationship, to have a partner. But yeah, Saturn keeps you together. That's the thing. Yeah. So I would say, is there a soul contract here? The nodes will tell you that. But regardless, soul contracts don't mean forever and ever. But if you look to Saturn, it'll tell you something about whether or not this is something long-term.
Yeah, and Nadia, I notice also that your synastry, or comparing your chart with the location, the cities, or the country independence chart, it also sometimes make those nodes connection, and you feel that you might have lived there before.
Oh my gosh. Can I tell you, when I was it was the end of 2012, right? It was the end of the Mayan calendar. And I wanted to go to Mexico for the celebration, because that was going to be where the party is, right? And I remember it was my first time in Latin America. And I had such powerful experiences during that 2-week time period. And when I got home, I remember having this conviction, a spiritual knowing that I was supposed to live there in Mexico, that I was supposed to learn this language, that I had some karma with this country, and I had to be there to know what it is.
Oh, you see?
And yeah, and I remember like 6 weeks later, I moved there, and I had Lady Gaga tickets. I went to the Lady Gaga concert on the 12th of February. On the 13th of February, I moved to Cancun. Now, Cancun, the synastry of the city, because it's a new city, we know it's synastry the day that the papers were signed, when they said this is the day, which was in 1970. It was April 1970. And they have this whole cluster of energy in Taurus, right? That's all south node. It's all on my south node. But they have their Jupiter in Scorpio, which is on my north node. And so that's how the experience ended up being. Now, as a side note, Cancun itself is fascinating because it has this like side of it that's all about the party, right? Come, eat, drink, go overboard, go way too far. Very Taurus energy. But it's also a deeply spiritual land. It's deeply transformative. There are pyramids everywhere. And when you see a pyramid, you're looking at a temple. Yeah, there are cenotes everywhere. Cenotes are where spiritual rituals took place. virgins were sacrificed, like quite literally, like, virgins would be thrown down there and the bones of them lie 100 feet at the base of these cenotes. I mean, these are how sacred the spaces are there. And it's also a very transformative place. Like, yeah, you have these intense experiences, but people leave and they feel different, like something's shifted. Sometimes, if you're aware, you connect it spiritually, but sometimes people are not
Oh,
necessarily
yes,
there.
spiritually.
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting, but how it spoke to me, how it woke up my chart, there was absolutely a very powerful connection. And I remember even with Rio's chart, there was some powerful energy because I think Rio is a Pisces, if I remember correctly, is a Pisces, and Pisces is my midheaven. So it was, I'll tell you something really fascinating. What shocked me when I went to Brazil is how many people in Brazil watch me. I was shocked, I will tell you. I didn't expect it. So when I went to Brazil and I said, when I'm on doing my show every week, my podcast on YouTube, I always say, hey, I'm here. If you're here, say hi, reach out. So many people reached out to say like they would like to meet me. And I remember one person I met and we took a photo together and they put that photo on Instagram. And
Oh,
so many people from Brazil, especially Sao Paulo, and I know you're in Sao Paulo, were
yes. São Paulo
commenting.
is Aquarius.
Yeah,
Totally
okay. So
different
people were
from.
saying, oh my God, I love her. I watch her. Wow, you got to meet her. What is she like? And I was shocked how many people watch me in Brazil. And it ended up being this place that was very validating professionally. That's for sure.
You see,
So, yeah, it's powerful to consider that's
it
those
is
synastries.
powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people, like I learned during classes on astrocartography or, astrocartography, we say because it's a copyrighted name, but people end up calling every software that do this, projection of shadows and lines and
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
in the map. They say sometimes you don't have to go there just to see movies, receive like a postcard from the place. You have the same experience of being there or making business, doing business with people over there, or working with clients, or in any kind of business, not just astrological clients, but
Yeah.
because there is no there is no just like geography or time and space, because it's still a mystery that when we connected to places and people, there are like far away out of out of the reach of our touch or something. So that's, for me, is just like mind blowing.
Yeah. And it's also interesting. Somebody pointed out that the asteroid Mexico is conjunct my IC. And I was shocked to learn that. And I mean, that just is mind blowing. Yeah. No wonder I always end up coming back to Mexico. Like I said, I've been to 50 countries, but when I come to Mexico, it is always home. It always feels like home immediately. And that's very powerful to find that in the world for a Sag moon.
It is. Well, I have to remind you that we have been talking for about 44
No
minutes.
problem. Now we're talking. Let's just talk. You're my friend. We're just
Oh
having
my goodness.
fun.
I was so
I was
worried
kind of
about.
like this. I was like this, before we started, I was feeling like quite tense. And then as soon as we just started talking, my energy just shifted and relaxed. So I'm here with you.
Wow,
I'm enjoying with
that's
you.
so
Yeah.
wonderful.
Well,
Yeah.
it says a lot about you. So thank you for that.
Oh my goodness. So I don't have to remind you how important it is for me or to me that you come to São Paulo. I live 100 kilometers, like 60 miles west of the capital city, São Paulo. It's a
Okay.
beautiful place, but I would go to São Paulo to meet you. And it's a blend of New York and Los Angeles. You see like the skyscrapers of New York in among the land of Los Angeles, and it has it feels like Aquarius international energy. So
Oh,
some
wow.
people, you have been to Brazil, not to São Paulo, but Rio and Brazil in general. So, what would you say? You see, like the national chart of Brazil, the independence is Sun in Virgo, September.
Hmm.
Some people say Aquarius ascendant with Ceres, the asteroid Ceres,
Yeah, yeah,
Ceres
yeah.
and the North Node in Aquarius. But some people think that Brazil has a Pisces ascendant because they mix sometimes the energy of Rio, that was a capital city of Brazil
Um,
once, but São Paulo never went. But the Independence Place, it's in São Paulo, and because in Capricorn there was Neptune and Uranus, the both modern rulers of Pisces and Aquarius, so they blend. And
mm,
more than that, the Aquarius ascendant is on the line of Neptune heliocentric south node is in
wow.
Aquarius. So
No
the
wonder you like
Neptune
to party, right? That's the carnival spirit right there.
is the
The
carnival,
freedom, I mean, that's the thing that I
fancy,
really loved. So
mass.
sorry, going back, Nando, you said Brazil has a Virgo sun. Does it have a Virgo moon?
No,
Or what
it's
did you say?
Gemini moon conjunction
Okay, that
Jupiter.
makes sense. That makes total
Gemini
sense,
moon.
doesn't it? Yeah,
Brazilians talk
yeah.
a lot.
They talk a lot. It's a culture that's very social. Like they call it the third space, right? It has a very strong third space culture. So basically it's this academic idea that our first place is our home. Our second place is our work. The third place is like a space where we also feel like this is where we sort of find comfort, we find familiarity, we find ourselves, we find our people. And that third space in Brazil is such a strong thing because it's
It's
all
the
about
street.
community. Yeah,
It's
exactly. It has such a strong like patio culture, and there's always friends. That's the thing, right? There's always people to hang out with. If you want to hang out, if you want to have fun, if you want to go to carnival, if you want to dance, you find somebody for sure. It's super, super easy to do that
yeah,
in Brazil. And one thing I really liked was just how comfortable everybody is in their bodies. I'll tell
true.
you, I had gone to at the beginning of 2023. I was in a different part of the world, and it's basically the Middle East. I was in one part of the Middle East, and it was my first time there, and I was really surprised to see, because I just wasn't familiar with it. I'd never seen it before. When you see like masses of women, moving through life under a black sheet, but their bodies are like, you can tell they don't feel safe. You can tell that their bodies are like this. And it was so shocking. It was so traumatic for me to see that, just to see it, just to glimpse it. And I remember I ended up transiting through Germany and going to Brazil right, straight from there, flying Germany to Brazil direct to Rio. And when I got to Rio, I was so surprised that everywhere, because it's a very warm city, and women of every age, of every body type, were
Yes.
basically wearing bikinis, right? Everywhere you went. And no one cared. No one cared. Everybody was just living their life. When I went to the beach, no one's leering at people, no one's doing things. No, everybody's just there to be in the sun, to enjoy the sun. And I really understood why the sun was one of the first great gods that humanity understood. And I understood why so many places like patriarchy, the birthplace of patriarchy, why, like, when you read the texts, the big texts of patriarchal texts, there's so much mention of women covering their hair, covering themselves, being humble, covering their bodies. We see this in the Old Testament, in the Torah, we see this in the Bible, we see this in
Yes.
the Quran. And when I went to Brazil, I understood why, because the sun reminds you of your power. It
Yeah.
really restores something in you. And so I found it so liberating. And I'll tell you, Brazil, it was the first place in my life I wore a bikini in my life. And I'm like a lot of people. I have stretch marks, I have cellulite, and I just let it all out. I was like, let the sun, and I felt it,
Yes,
and it changed my life. I kid you, I'm getting emotional thinking about it because it really did change my life to realize that,
it's
I've been
interesting.
so many places in the world, and it really all comes
Liberating.
down to, yeah, it's all about mentality. Nothing is really true in a very empirical way where it comes to what it is to be human and how to live, right? Where it comes to what to believe. These are very subjective things, and they're determined by so many factors, a lot of which has to do with power and enforcing power. But to be in a place where that personal expression, like women wearing very little, it has really nothing to do with the men. It's not for performance, it is for themselves, it is for the sun, it
Because
is, yeah,
basically is the native Brazilian indigenous
yes,
people that live there
yeah.
naked. So
That's
it's a
the other
tradition.
thing. May I just say, Brazil was so surprising in how they have this incredibly unique culture. I have never been to a place in the Americas where the African tradition was so a part of
Yes,
mass culture, right? Like you
yes,
see in for example in the United States, this awakening of the African traditions, but it's a reclamation, right? It's like trying to reconnect and remember something. But in Brazil, it's always been there, and it's practiced by everybody regardless of your race. Everybody has this
true.
understanding of imanja, right?
Yes, the African
The
influence in
African,
food, music,
yes,
dance,
yes.
carnival,
Samba,
samba,
samba is
religion. You
samba
know that's
is
the what is
the
that?
African prayers that they turn. That's what samba
Cuban
is.
Santeria, the Cuban.
Yes, the Santeria, because that is like sort of an incorporation of indigenous practices as well from the indigenous people of Brazil, but also of the African people and the traditions they brought, and
Yeah,
it's incredible. And so, yeah, like people, I mean, I know that people. It's very acceptable to do things to change your body. People care, of course. They want to look good to them in a bikini, but it's also like, who cares? It's about you. If you need that, you do that. But people don't have to be anything in order to just be free, to go dancing as late as you want, to wear as little clothing as you want, and to walk, to see the women walking with a full expectation of being respected was very powerful for me. And I know it's not a utopia, right? I know because I spoke to women who said there's sexism, that's a problem, but that's true everywhere in the world. And it's different, but it's just different. It's different to be in a place where freedom is celebrated, and just being a human being and knowing that you can enjoy life is celebrated. It changed my life forever. So I'll always be grateful to Brazil for that. I think I lost Nando because you were on the screen and then you went. So I'll just hang out here because I know we're live and we're still recording. Wow, I could talk about how much I love Brazil. And we're waiting for Nando. Let me see. Let me see him on WhatsApp. And I will say to him on WhatsApp right now, maybe this will still end up on the show, and say, hey, you disappeared. Okay, let me see. I'm still live and recording. You can let me know what you want me to say. Okay, so he'll let me know if there's something specific I should be talking about. But yeah, he said some connections failed here. Okay. But it says live, so it must still be recording. I set that as an audio note, right? But you can tell people that he lost connection and to finish. Okay. So Okay, so I'm going to do that right now. This thing is continuing to record. And so Nando has some internet issues. So we're going to close out for the solstice and just thank you, Brazil. Thank you for being a place that was just so healing to me. I'll keep recording here, Nando. And it really helped me to understand how my work is meaningful to people. And I'm just so grateful for that to everybody in Brazil. So happy summer solstice. Now, he sent me something he wants me to say. Você pode informar. You can help. He lost connection here, and you just say goodbye. Okay, no problem, Nando. No problem at all. I'm going to say goodbye right now. Boa noite. Boa tarde. And just thank you, Brazil. I love you so much. And happy solstice. Happy solstice. Bye.
Então, pessoal, teve um acidente aqui e a gente teve que terminar. I'm so sorry we had this loss of connection, internet, and we finished now. Thank you again. Bye-bye.